Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 9, Class and Legitimacy. And our topic is Concept of Legitimacy. Legitimacy refers to lawful and regular activity which could be justified on one or the other reasonable ground. For example, the use of public money for some legitimate purposes, legitimate reasons for one's absence from office or work, and being born of persons legitimately related or married are such cases that give us some initial ideas about the use of this term legitimacy. In our daily life experience, we come across several such cases when we accept the actions of others as correct, acceptable, and justified. We normally do not question such actions of others, but sometimes we come across such instances when we think that the action of the others are not justifiable. When we begin to question the actions of others, we get some vague ideas of the term legitimacy. People born out of the legitimate relationship, like marriage, are known as legitimate children. What right one has got to speak to us like this? Who is he to order us to do certain things? These are the questions that arise in our minds when we are not ready to accept the other's action, judgments, or orders as such. It could be understood like, what is the legitimate ground on which one is asking us to do certain favors? This question is related to the action of others, but sometimes questions are raised about one's status as well. A reference to questions like this has already been made. In this way, the notion of legitimacy covers a much wider area than with which we are normally concerned. Now let us discuss why legitimacy. Throughout the world, in the modern times as well as in history, the people or government in power have attempted normally to justify their occupation of power over the people over whom they have ruled. The people in power must be in a position to demonstrate that their occupation of power is legitimate as well. For example, in democratic countries, the people who govern are elected on a regular basis. In such countries, elections are held after a certain period of time, and only the elected representatives can govern over the people. The people in power have always attempted to somehow justify their hold on certain privileged positions, which includes rewards as well. They have been able to develop certain mechanisms through which they were able to justify their claims over their subordinates and the people in general. On the other hand, these subordinates are require some basis on which to accept the claims of their superiors. In this way, legitimacy could resolve the possibility of conflict between those who govern and those who are being governed. Legitimacy thus resolves the conflict between the differing claims of people, as it is important especially in those cases that are related to the distribution of power in society. As stated earlier, the scope for the issues centered around legitimacy is much wider than it apparently appears. A meaningful and scientific analysis of some of these issues is discussed in the sociological discourse. Now let us move to the point: basis of legitimacy: traditional, legal, rational, and charismatic. The credit must go in favor of Max Weber, a prominent sociologist from Germany, who not only identified the importance of the issues like legitimacy, but also attempted to make a scientific analysis of it. After establishing legitimacy as an important issue for sociological analysis, Max Weber attempted to clarify the important bases of legitimacy. Max Weber identified three main bases of legitimacy, namely what he calls it traditional, legal, rational, and charismatic. Max Weber has also distinguished between the power and authority. According to Max Weber, powers refers to the capacity of the actor to carry out his will in spite of resistance. According to him, legitimate power is called the authority. Now let us move to the next point: traditional authority. One could derive legitimacy on the basis of the traditional grounds. Not very long back in history, several kings throughout the world ruled over the people on the basis of the traditional authority. If the authority was derived on the traditional basis, as in the case of kings, then it was not generally questioned by the people. Several traditional legends and the epics also supported the rule of the king, as he was considered to be the representative of God. The basic understanding behind the rule of king was like this: the king has been ordered by God to look after the welfare of people. Now the next point is legal rational authority. According to Max Weber, the second base of legitimacy is legal rational. This type of authority has been found in almost all the modern societies of the world. It is also known as legal rational authority. The most appropriate expression of such legal rational authority could be what is nowadays known as bureaucracy. Max Weber himself had identified bureaucracy as an important and emerging phenomena throughout the world, and himself made a conceptual analysis of it. Although some other scholars from other social sciences as well later tried to understand the notion of bureaucracy in the changing scenario of the world. But due to the intellectual craftsmanship of Max Weber, his formulations on bureaucracy still enjoy a commendable respect. In fact, Max Weber's discussion involves much more than what is generally attributed to his formulations on bureaucracy. For example, Max Weber's formulations on bureaucracy includes what he calls it ideal type, modern organizations, and his overall methodology of social sciences. The basic idea here has been to understand how does bureaucracy get legitimacy in modern organizations on the ground of legal rational authority. Before proceeding further, it seems necessary to clarify some opinions regarding bureaucracy. First, it must be kept in mind that the ideal type has nothing to do with the ideal conditions that are supposed to be achieved by any individual or organization. Second, it was suggested by Max Weber that all the characteristics as they are stated to comprise bureaucracy are not to be found in any actual existing bureaucratic organization. Third, the opposite of ideal type is real type, which might actually be found in the society. But as ideal type received importance in the sociological literature, its counterpart real type neither received importance nor it was used as such in the discipline at later stages of research. But then, what was the need to construct the ideal type? Max Weber believed that ideal type is useful and could be constructed whenever we are dealing with unknown or less familiar situations. Max Weber has clarified the notion of legal rational basis of legitimacy in detail. This legal rational basis of legitimacy is realized through bureaucracy in modern organizations. At this stage, the readers are advised to keep in mind, compare and contrast this type of legitimacy with its other types. The main characteristics of bureaucracy could be discussed in the following way. The first, in any bureaucratic organization, there are written rules which are followed by everyone from top to bottom in a defined way. The work and orders related to it are given from those who are at the top of the organization and are to be followed by those at the lower level. Bureaucracy involves a lot of work on paper, which means that no verbal orders could be given. Similarly, only such orders could be given which are appropriate according to rules, meaning thereby that wrong orders could neither be given nor they are to be followed. The work and the orders on paper reduce the chances of personal biases against each other. The idea behind such organization and style of work is that if the issues are correct and correspond to the existing state of laws, then they should be completed. The aims of the perfect bureaucratic organization include the cases and not the people. Second is, as bureaucratic organizations do their work on paper, it is done by its permanent employees. Rules of the office regulate recruitment of the staff and its promotions. The nature and working of such an organization happens to be different from the individuals who comprise it. The idea behind such organization has been to ensure complete non-interference from any quarter, completely transparent and impersonal working. The third is, although Weber's work was concerned with the public bureaucracy, his emphasis on rationality associated with it extended the use of this concept in private sectors as well. Since Weber believed in the rational basis of legitimacy for both, that is bureaucracy as well as the then emerging enterprises, it was to be hoped that the bureaucracy might finally find a place in the private business organizations as well. And the fourth is, there seems to be a need to understand and examine this legal rational form of legitimacy as it is expressed through bureaucracy. In practice, however, certain characteristics which were contrary to the formulations of Max Weber were noted by some scholars. For example, the issues like misgovernance, incompetence, unnecessary paperwork, and frustration of people in Bureaucracy have been referred by several scholars. These dysfunctions of bureaucracy have been referred in the case of capitalist as well scholastic type of governance system. But the credit of the highlighting the legal rational form of legitimacy and its analysis goes to Max Weber. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with a self-learning podcast.